Breaking news. Undeniably, Blake Shelton prides himself in being a mainstay on the popular show The Voice. After his longtime tenure, he compares himself to Wheel of Fortune host Pat Sajak. Additionally, he teases a possible comeback for the show. In 2023, Blake Shelton left The Voice fans in shock by leaving abruptly. Unmistakably, he had been a staple of the show since its start. After 23 back-to-back seasons, Blake admitted he needed a break. While Blake was a fixture on the show since its first season in 2011, he knew it was time to do something else. Without a doubt, he still holds the record for most wins by a coach on The Voice. Notably, he took the win in 9 different seasons. Additionally, following Blake's lead, his wife, Gwen Stefani, left the show soon after him in 2024 before the start of season 25. With Blake Shelton's long run on The Voice, he easily identifies with longtime Wheel of Fortune host Pat Sajak. Undoubtedly, the years of filming have taken its toll on Blake. Furthermore, he compares himself to Pat's iconic host role of 41 years. Blake says, "I've done it for 23 seasons without missing a single season, you know?" While Blake's stint didn't last nearly as long as Pat's, he thinks he understands what Pat must be feeling as he approaches retirement. Blake exclaims, "I know what you feel like, Pat Sajak." Admittedly, he knows how tired he was after 23 seasons and can imagine the dedication it takes to stick with one job for 41 years. Then relating, Blake adds, "Because that's kind of how I was starting to feel." All in all, Blake Shelton reflects on what the trade for a career like The Voice or Wheel of Fortune takes, adding, "If you're on back-to-back seasons, there's really no time for any other thing, you know?" Accordingly, he points out, if you didn't want to have a family and a life that much, you could do it, but something has to give. It was time for The Voice to be thing that gives. Furthermore, Blake previously admitted the seasons were catching up with him. "The second I started feeling like, oh my gosh, I don't even remember what season this is anymore. Who are the coaches on this season? I knew that I needed to get away from here." Additionally, telling Today that it was a difficult decision for him. He says, "I think I was close to calling it a day right when COVID hit, and then because of COVID, I didn't want to walk away from the show and leave everybody in a bind." Although Blake Shelton doesn't seem to be in a hurry to return to The Voice, he has a few instances he teases that would warrant a comeback. In an interview with Extrat on Sunday, he says, "I don't ever plan on working at The Voice again," further adding, "Who knows, that's me sitting here as I say that right now." Then he says, "I can't say I wouldn't come by for a surprise appearance." Additionally, showing his gratitude for his time on the show, he says, "That show is the greatest and most important thing I've ever been a part of in my career. It changed my life." Admittedly, it sounds like Blake left on good terms. He says, "When I left, I feel like I really left. We all love each other." Likewise, Blake is thankful for the opportunity the show gave him to connect with his now wife, Gwen Stefani. During an interview on Thursday with Entertainment Tonight, Blake Shelton discusses one perfect scenario for his return to The Voice's big red chair. Blake says, "If they were ever able to put together the original 4 coaches again, maybe I'd return for one season, a one-off," referring to a reunion with Adam Levine, Christina Aguilera, and CeeLo Green. He says, "That would be fun for me. That would be something I would be interested in doing." What do you think about the idea of Blake Shelton returning to The Voice? Do you think his experience is comparable to Wheel of Fortune host Pat Sajak's time on the show? Are you enjoying the current coaches on The Voice? Drop your comments below. Blake Shelton may have stepped away from The Voice, the show that made him a household name, but he hasn't left the entertainment world entirely. Known for his quick wit, country charm, and laid-back personality, Shelton spent 12 years coaching hopeful singers on The Voice, leaving a lasting legacy on the hit NBC show. Now, after a brief hiatus, he's hinted at a potential return, and he's comparing himself to none other than Pat Sajak, the legendary host of Wheel of Fortune. In a recent interview, Shelton playfully suggested that his long-standing role on The Voice makes him a staple of the show, much like Sajak is to Wheel of Fortune, even though he's now stepping back to focus on other projects. Fans of Shelton are excited by the possibility of his return, especially since his departure left many wondering if The Voice would ever be the same without him. In this piece, we'll explore Blake's thoughts on returning to the show, his self-comparison to Pat Sajak, and what the future might hold for the country superstar and former coach. Reflecting on his time on The Voice, Blake Shelton joined The Voice in 2011 when the show first aired, and over 23 seasons, he became its longest-tenured coach. His down-to-earth demeanor and Southern charm helped him become an instant fan favorite, and his chemistry with other coaches, especially his playful banter with Adam Levine and later his real-life romance with Gwen Stefani, made him a key part of the show's appeal. In many ways, Shelton was synonymous with The Voice. The contestants loved him for his genuine advice and support, while fans enjoyed his humor and storytelling. As the seasons went by, Blake coached 9 contestants to victory, making him the winningest coach in the show's history. His ability to connect with his team members and bring out their best performances contributed to his legacy, and he developed a reputation for nurturing country artists, helping the genre gain a foothold on mainstream television. Reflecting on his time with The Voice, Shelton shared that he felt proud of the success he achieved on the show and grateful for the relationships he built along the way. However, 23 seasons and over a decade later, Shelton announced his departure in 2023, citing a desire to focus on family life with Gwen Stefani and her kids, as well as his other projects, such as his ranch in Oklahoma. He also wanted to make room for new coaches, allowing the show to evolve and bring fresh energy. Despite his departure, Shelton still feels a deep connection to The Voice and isn't ruling out the possibility of returning in some capacity. Comparing himself to Pat Sajak, the forever face of The Voice, in a recent interview, Shelton humorously compared himself to Pat Sajak, who has hosted Wheel of Fortune for over 4 decades. For Shelton, the comparison is about longevity and the familiar face he became for fans of The Voice. While Sajak will always be the face of Wheel of Fortune, Shelton believes he became that staple presence on The Voice, making him an irreplaceable part of the show's legacy. Shelton's comparison to Sajak is fitting, as both hosts have carved out niches in their respective shows, creating a sense of stability and tradition that fans come to expect. Shelton sees his role as similar to Sajak's in that he became an anchor for the show, a figure who fans could rely on for humor, warmth, and a dose of Southern hospitality. Pat Sajak has been the face of Wheel of Fortune for so long that people just can't imagine anyone else doing it, Shelton said, laughing. That's kind of how I feel about The Voice. It became home for me, and it's hard to think of it without being a part of it in some way. Shelton's comments reflect a sense of pride and nostalgia for the role he played on The Voice. Although he has stepped away, his influence is still felt, and he remains a beloved figure among fans who can't quite imagine the show without him. A possible return to The Voice. While Shelton's departure seemed like the end of an era, he has left the door open for a potential return. In his interview, he hinted that he would be open to guest appearances or possibly even returning as a coach in the future. "I'm not saying I'll never be back," Shelton teased. "I think I'll always be part of the Voice family, one way or another." For longtime fans, the idea of Blake returning is exciting, especially since his departure left a void that's been difficult to fill. Although The Voice has brought in new coaches to keep the show fresh, Shelton's humor, personality, and mentorship style were unique, and his absence has been noticeable. Blake's return, even if only as a guest coach or mentor, would likely be met with enthusiasm and nostalgia, as he brings a level of familiarity that both contestants and fans appreciate. Blake also mentioned that he's enjoyed watching The Voice from a distance, supporting his wife Gwen Stefani and the other coaches, and seeing the show continue to thrive. "I'm proud of what The Voice has become, and if they ever need me to come back, I'd be honored to be there," he said. Life after The Voice. Blake's new chapter. Since leaving The Voice, Blake has focused on his personal life, spending more time at his ranch in Oklahoma, which he refers to as his true home. He's enjoyed life away from the fast pace of television, dedicating more time to his relationship with Gwen and being a stepdad to her sons. Additionally, Blake has expanded his other ventures, including his growing restaurant business, Ole Red, which has locations in Nashville, Gatlinburg, and other cities. Blake also continues to pursue his music career, with new songs and projects that keep him connected to his country roots. In his post-The Voice life, Shelton seems content, finding a balance between work and family that he struggled to achieve during his years on the show. Fans have been supportive of his new direction, admiring his dedication to family and his roots. Blake's ability to step away from a successful career at the peak of its popularity reflects his down-to-earth approach and his commitment to his personal happiness and growth. However, even as he embraces this new chapter, he's aware that a piece of him will always be tied to The Voice. The legacy of Blake Shelton on The Voice. Blake Shelton's tenure on The Voice left an indelible mark on the show. His humor, generosity, and genuine care for his team members set a standard for what it means to be a great coach. For 12 years, he brought in authenticity and humor that fans couldn't get enough of, helping to make The Voice one of the most watched singing competitions on television.